OpenAI just dropped GPT-5 in August 2025, and everyone's asking the same question. Is it actually better than GPT-4, or is this just another overhyped AI release? I spent the last week testing both models extensively, and the results might surprise you. Let's dive in. Introduction. What's up, everyone? Today we're doing a comprehensive comparison between GPT-4 and GPT-5. Now here's what's crazy. GPT-5 is completely free for all ChatGPT users, unlike previous releases where you had to pay for the premium features. But does free mean it's actually worth using? We're about to find out through real-world testing. The key differences. Before we jump into testing, let's understand what makes these models different. GPT-4, released in 2023, was fast and capable, but had some limitations. It was good at reasoning, but not great. Solid at coding, but not exceptional, and it would sometimes hallucinate or make up facts. GPT-5 changes the game with what OpenAI calls a unified architecture. This means it combines the speed of the GPT series with the deep thinking capabilities of their reasoning models. The most interesting feature is something called an auto-router that automatically decides when to give you a quick response versus when to think deeply about complex problems. The numbers are impressive too. GPT-5 reduces factual errors by 45% compared to GPT-4, and when it's in thinking mode, that number jumps to 80% fewer errors. For coding specifically, GPT-5 scores 74.9% on the SWE bench verified test, compared to 69.1% for OpenAI's previous best model real-world testing. Reasoning. Let's start with reasoning capabilities. I gave both models this classic logic puzzle. In a town, the barber only cuts hair for people who don't cut their own hair. So who cuts the barber's hair? GPT-4 gave me a straightforward answer but missed the philosophical depth of the paradox. GPT-5, however, immediately recognized this as the famous barber paradox and explained why it's logically impossible to answer. It went into thinking mode and broke down the contradiction step by step. For mathematical reasoning, I tested both with solving a cubic equation. GPT-4 could solve it, but gave me the final answer without much explanation. GPT-5 showed its work, explained each step, and even offered alternative solving methods. The difference in depth is noticeable. Coding capabilities. This is where GPT-5 really shines. I asked both models to create a responsive landing page for a tech startup with a dark theme. GPT-4 produced decent code that needed several rounds of debugging and adjustments. GPT-5 generated cleaner, more efficient code that was responsive out of the box and required minimal tweaking. But here's where it gets interesting. I intentionally gave both models buggy code to debug. GPT-4 found the obvious errors but missed some subtle issues. GPT-5 not only found all the bugs, but explained why they were problematic and suggested better coding practices to prevent similar issues in the future. The benchmark numbers back this up. GPT-5 achieves 88% on the AIDR polyglot coding test, and early developers are saying it feels like having a senior programmer as a coding partner rather than just a code generator. Multimodal performance. For visual understanding, I tested both models with complex infographics and charts. GPT-4 could describe what it saw but often missed important details or connections between data points. GPT-5 demonstrated significantly better visual comprehension, scoring 84.2% on the MMMU benchmark. It could not only describe images accurately but also make inferences and connections that GPT-4 missed. Creative writing and content. I asked both models to write a 500-word blog post about the future of AI in education. GPT-4's response was informative but felt somewhat generic and overly agreeable. GPT-5 produced content that felt more natural and less like it was written by an AI. OpenAI specifically trained GPT-5 to be less sycophantic, meaning it's less likely to just agree with everything you say and more likely to provide balanced, thoughtful responses. The writing quality improvement is subtle but noticeable. GPT-5 varies its sentence structure more, uses more sophisticated reasoning, and feels more conversational. The problems with GPT-5 now. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. GPT-5's launch hasn't been smooth. Users immediately started complaining that the model was making basic mistakes and performing worse than expected. Some people were posting examples of GPT-5 failing at simple math problems that GPT-4 could handle. Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, had to go into damage control mode. He admitted that the auto-switching system was broken for a significant portion of the launch day, which made GPT-5 appear much less capable than it actually is. When the router system failed, users were getting the fast, simple responses even for complex queries that needed deep thinking. The marketing didn't help either. OpenAI promised PhD-level intelligence, which set expectations incredibly high. When users experienced a buggy launch, the disappointment was amplified. When to use which model? So after extensive testing, here's my honest assessment. GPT-5 is genuinely smarter, but it depends on what you're doing. For coding and development work, GPT-5 is significantly better. If you're a programmer, the upgrade is worth it. For complex reasoning tasks, research and analysis, GPT-5 consistently outperforms GPT-4. It's also more reliable for factual information and less likely to hallucinate. However, GPT-4 still has some advantages. It's more stable and predictable because it's been around longer and the bugs have been worked out. For simple, straightforward tasks, GPT-4 is often faster because it doesn't overthink things. If you're a student or researcher, GPT-5 is probably worth using despite the occasional bugs. If you're using AI for business-critical applications, you might want to wait a few more weeks for GPT-5 to stabilize. For casual users, honestly, both are impressive, and you might not notice a huge difference in everyday use. Final verdict: so is GPT-5 smarter than GPT-4? Yes, measurably so. The benchmarks don't lie, and in my real-world testing, GPT-5 consistently demonstrated superior reasoning, coding, and analytical capabilities. But is it ready for prime time? That's more complicated. The potential is clearly there, but the execution needs work. OpenAI rushed this launch, and it shows. My recommendation? If you're doing technical work or need the best possible AI reasoning, try GPT-5 but keep GPT-4 as a backup. For everyone else, GPT-5 is worth experimenting with, but don't be surprised if you occasionally need to fall back to the older model. The future of AI is definitely moving in GPT-5's direction, but we're still in the early days of this particular model. Give it a month or two, and I expect GPT-5 to be the clear winner across the board. That's my take on the GPT-4 versus GPT-5 debate. What's your experience been? Are you seeing the improvements I mentioned, or are you sticking with GPT-4 for now? Let me know in the comments, and if this breakdown was helpful, make sure to subscribe for more AI comparisons and reviews.